Hey, Tim here. It's been a while. Them's just the breaks lately. Been looking for jobs and, working my freelance stuff outside of the podcast to, try to make the ends meet, as they say. But here we are with a new episode with the new modular company, Ampersand Ampersand, that released their first module, Wear and Tear, not too long ago. What you're hearing below my voice right now is actually the track Kitty Safari from the album Kitty Safari I did with my good friend Steven Jett. I loaded that song into my 4MS sampler and then got it looping in a crazy way and got a bunch of crazy modulation happening to move it around and then put that through the Wear and Tear. And I thought it would just be a nice little appetizer before we get into the episode. For those of you watching, this footage was taken at Point Defiance in Tacoma, where my wife and I went and spent all day at the beach and got to see jellyfish, and even a dead seal floated up to shore, which there's some footage of at the end of this video, but I tried to make it a little vague so it is not too disturbing. But if you haven't got to that part yet and don't even want to see it at all, I advise you to skip forward a few seconds. So now let's just sit back, relax, listen to the rest of this weird jam, and then we'll get into our episode. Hello, my name's Tim Held, and welcome back to another episode of Podmodcast. This week we have Jason LaFerrera from Ampersand Ampersand on the show. If you're not familiar with Ampersand Ampersand, they're a brand new modular company who have just released the first module called the Wear and Tear. It's a lot of fun, and we're going to talk a lot about it today. And I think it's a really, really fun conversation, so I hope you enjoy it. We're going to get into it in a moment, but first this. This week's episode is brought to you in part by Expert Sleepers, creators of the ES9, one of my most valuable studio tools for working with modular. In fact, it's so vital to my studio work now. I built my own little custom modular rack to put right above my giant mixer that I have in my studio. That way it's just always there, it's always in its home, and I can hook it to my computer and over to my modular system very easily. If you want more information on that, go check out Expert Sleepers online, link in the show notes. As you know, this show is funded through sponsorships from different synth companies and synth shops, but it is also funded by you, the listener, through a website called Patreon, to which there is a link in the show notes if you would like to sign up on a monthly basis to support the show. For the cost of 1 cup of coffee per month, if enough of you do this, it becomes rather significant and allows me more time and resources to make the show better. So once again, that's patreon.com/podmodcast, link in the show notes. If you don't like the whole idea of a monthly subscription, you can also get me on Venmo at podmodtim or via PayPal with the email address podmodcast@gmail.com. That's podmodcast, not podular, because I'm dumb. podmodcast@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening and for the support. Now let's get into this week's featured artist, Zooza, from Paris, France, with their track, Stall. If you would like to be a featured artist on Podmodcast, please email me a WAV file and a a picture of your album art and a little information about yourself to podmodsub@gmail.com. The video that I made for this track was a little experimenting I did in the backyard with some low light and some flickering fire as my light source, and a creepy old man mask that I put in the shed. So buckle up, it's weird. All right, Jason LaFerrera from Ampersand Ampersand. I'm super stoked to have you on the show and get to know you, because we've been chatting a lot, but you don't get to say a whole lot when you're just talking about modules and DMs and stuff. So yeah, what I want to open with is congrats on the launch of a new company, and what a cool device to. I'm going to pop it up on my screen here. Of course, now it's backwards. Son of a bitch. Does it look backwards? Is it backwards to you?
Yeah, it's mirrored the other way, but
Son of a bitch. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. But here, let me go back to my mugshot here, and I'm just going to do a quick little fix on that. Little behind the curtain, how the sausage is made for the listeners, which I should probably edit this part out, but I'll probably forget to. Let's see. Now. And now it's way off.
Bingo,
center.
Look at that.
Boom.
Little fisheye on there. It's looking good.
Yeah. Isn't that sweet? So yeah, let me start over here because I will edit that part out. So yeah, congratulations on the launch of the company, and such a cool module to use, to have as your kind of launching module. And I popped it up here on the screen for those watching. The Wear and Tear from Ampersand Ampersand. And I love the construction on it. I like that you didn't go straight up black and gold with it. I don't have the black gold. I understand for manufacturing purposes and everything. It's more convenient and everything, but I don't know.
Don't we want everything to look like it's NASA gear though, right? Like I want IBM beige.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah. Well, I think also it has to me what it says, because of what it is, it kind of gives me 80s early to early 90s vibe with when high-end audio tape stuff, it looks like a tape, it belongs in the world of tape.
Yeah. I was looking at a bunch of, I don't know if you're familiar with Atari, not Atari, but all those tape machines. I was like, this beige, this is. When I was making my Pinterest inspiration board, I was like, that's the one. Got to get it. Yeah. Sound Blaster 16. Give it to me.
Yeah. And what was it, like the 909 drum machine that had like kind of that beige look to it too? I think so.
It's one of them. Yeah, I never had one of the. I had like the 606, but that's definitely the beige too.
Yeah. Yeah. I had one of those situations where I was like borrowing, but like for over a year. It was my girlfriend at the time's brother's 909, and man, like I had that. I wish that experience overlapped with my current knowledge of
Yeah.
electronic gear, because that was like one of the first things I messed with, which was probably good because like the old school aspect and stuff. Well, now my freaking camera's back home. Give me 1 second here. So it was weird because it was fine in my OBS, and then in this Zencaster environment, it was showing up backwards on the screen. So I flipped it and it fixed it. But once we started recording,
Hey, software is not easy.
Yeah, it's dumb. Whoa, see? That's movie magic there. Not that it matters, but it was going to bother me. Okay, but I caught myself getting ahead. I don't want to go straight into the module yet because I always like to get to know the people behind the companies and modules or music. And I like your aesthetic, obviously, and I've also really enjoyed your promo, like the old Maxwell kind of commercial.
Thank you. Yeah.
Super, super cool. So give us your story, however you want to answer this question. Is there a moment when music, through an artist or anything, like grabs you, and then music went from just a listening thing to like, oh, I need to participate, and then from there into getting into synths and then building your own, designs?
Yeah. I mean, it's a
It's a big
very
question.
specific trajectory, but like I know
Mm-hmm.
it. I was there.
Yeah.
So I'm 44 years old in high school. Nirvana and Nine Inch Nails was like that was it. Go to the end
Yeah.
collect side of the CD store.
So real quick, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Richmond, Virginia. I've been
Okay,
in New
and you're in
York,
New York now, right?
yeah, since 2008 or so.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, those two, Nirvana and Nine Inch Nails, I was like, yes, I want to get a bass. I want to do this. And all that Nine Inch Nails drum machine stuff, like we didn't know anyone that had a drum set or could play drums when I was
Right.
13, 14 years old. And so trackers were a big thing, like Impulse Tracker and Buzz. And so like my buddy and I like just started making music on those on our like 386s, again, like 386 beige. And at the time, like, yeah, I had no idea. Like these words come back to me like, oh, car plus strong synthesis. And there was like a little car plus strong module. And I was just like, I don't know, car plus sounds like strings, but now I know way too much about it. But yeah, we were just making making music on our computers when we were in high school, not the most popular kids in school, but making weird industrial front 242 style songs. And then all that Warp Record stuff came out. I'm just like, oh yeah,
Nice.
I know how to sequence drums like this. Let's do a lot of this.
So Richmond was a big enough town for you to like meet the right people or have the right, access to this kind of stuff? Or was there that older brother of a friend? Or
I would say we like really discovered a lot of it ourselves. Like I could think of like two or three people, and they were all in high school together, and it was just like, my friend Brent was like learning Jimi Hendrix songs at like guitar lessons, and then was like, I want to learn this Alice Chain song. And then like, the internet was like nascent at that point. There was like, I think we had AOL, like there were message boards, and like you had some actual external internet, but
Mom, get off the phone, I want to get online.
Yeah, definitely. Like trying to download whatever, and it took all night. But yeah, and then it wasn't until like college years where like, got to meet other people, other outcasts, and was like, oh, you actually have a drum machine. And it was like someone's older brother, and like never like programmed anything with pads. Like I've just like used the hex editor and Impulse Tracker forever.
Okay, so up to this point, it's like you're learning this complicated stuff and how to use it because it's like that's the necessity. That's how that's the only way to really make music in this way that you want to, especially without a drummer practice space.
Or just like what we found at the time, right? And like it was free.
Right.
Like
totally, yeah.
Cubase existed, but like it was $149 or whatever back then. I was like, I don't have that kind of money.
Right.
but I was also like super in indie rock and like college, like it's like let's just make Guided by Voices songs onto the Tascam
Yeah,
424.
nice.
Like,
Who
uh,
else are some of your bands? Because now you're speaking my language in that time frame too.
I mean, it was a lot of like all the Merge Record stuff, all the Matador
Hmm.
stuff. I was like
Yeah,
super into Blonde Redhead, like anything kind of math rocky, all like Don Caballero, and then later Battles. It was just like a lot
yeah,
of
yeah.
that very angular guitar
Hmm.
things. I played guitar for since I was 13 or something.
Same here.
Um,
Nice.
and then like got super into recording. Like I went to Full Sail. I don't know if you remember that place.
Oh
They
yeah, yeah. I
advertised.
have a couple cousins that went there. Did you? Is that in Florida or they have them all over
Yeah,
the place? Yeah, yeah.
there's
They went to Florida.
advertising in the back of Rolling Stone magazine, and like
Yeah,
that
yeah.
was a, you know, I'd only, again, we had no money, and like learning about condenser microphones and like actually holding like, you know, a 414 in my hand, which isn't that expensive a microphone. Like when you
When you get
are
into
in it,
condensers and like
yeah.
when you find out what the summit of that peak is like, yeah.
And that was a super weird experience because like I loved it. Like I, you know, straight A student. Like I wasn't doing so good in normal school, but here's like I just
Right,
have to
right.
memorize like letters and numbers all day.
Yeah.
And everyone else I was in school with was either like super into hip hop, super into like Miami bass, or like
Okay, okay.
metalheads. Those were like the three
Right.
categories of people. And I was
Florida.
like,
That checks out.
yeah, yeah. I was like, don't you think the drums on In Utero are awesome sounding? And everyone was like, no, they sound terrible. I was like, you're wrong about that.
But they're like,
um,
have you ever heard well, Saint Anger probably hadn't existed
no, yeah, I don't think we had that snare tone. But all the hip hop kids were like, "Oh, you know how to make beats?" Like they thought recording school meant they were going to become producers, and like
I see. Hmm.
we didn't get into like digital music until like I don't know a couple months in. And I was like, "Yeah, man, I'll make beats for you." And like just you know the white kid that could had a bunch of 808 samples, whatever they'd
Uh-huh.
come over and smoke so much weed in my apartment, and I was just like, "Okay, well, just lay down your bars, man."
That's awesome. Well, I mean, that's a great way to like because I feel like well, you were obviously going to school for it, but like I don't know, just anything that can like get you out of like making what you want to make, like, you know, just collaborating with somebody else and trying to like to the best of your ability, like kind of have good enough communication and then be able to like execute what they're describing as, you know, somebody who's producing a beat for them or
Totally.
something. So valuable.
And yeah, like having an eclectic, not just like style of music, but just knowing what all the other genres were and like understanding how they were produced and like you know all that super kick heavy R&B and hip hop that was coming out at that time. Like everyone
Hmm.
was still feeling like the Dre style production,
Yeah.
and then like you know I ended up being a recording engineer. I worked at the studio in Richmond for a while, and like
Okay.
no one prepared you for like, oh, you just sit at the tape operator and just like, let's do another pass. You that
Yeah.
was a little pitchy. Let's do that. And like recording these hip hop kids rapping was a good intro of just like, yeah, this is monotonous as hell. You
Yeah,
just
for
do
sure.
this. One song takes an entire day, and I think I kind of have like a really good like ethos of that. Like I can listen to the same song for like a week. It doesn't drive me batty. I can just do it, and like
Hmm.
I ended up doing that for a couple of years.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's yeah. Well, it's funny because you know it's something my wife has to deal with, and especially now because I'm in one of my phases where I'm like super motivated, and the muse is striking hard. So I'm writing and
Strike when
recording
it's
a lot.
hot. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. That's what I've learned. It's like yeah, I have to
Cecilia
do
might not
that.
be there when you wake up in the morning. You know.
Exactly. That's exactly right. But unfortunately for her and you know like my close friends, you know, I've got a Google Drive folder that's just constantly having stuff uploaded, and then I have to listen to the car, and oh no, I have to listen on my phone speakers, and then I have to listen on this shitty Bluetooth speaker compared to the good. And then when I finally get to this point where it's like I'm like, this song is amazing, can I show it to you? And she's like, I've heard this
Oh yeah.
700 times. And I'm like, but you haven't heard like the real version. And they yeah, you have to switch this part of your brain to where you're listening to it analytically than for like entertainment or enjoyment purposes.
Yep, just that frequency response and all those different things. And just like, oh man,
Mm-hmm.
the guitar sounds like this, and like, oh, the kick drum. Yeah, it's you just got to go through it. There's no other way
Yeah,
around it. AI can't
yeah,
do it yet.
yeah. And I hate to say that I learned something valuable from Phil Spector, but before he was a monster, or maybe he always was, but like his whole thing of listening to his mixes on like, the just like the average radio that you could find, and they're like, why would you do that? And it's like, because this is what most people are listening to it on. And now with Bluetooth speakers and the crazy range that you get in like their frequency response, like
Yep.
individually, like that is like the best way for me to make sure that everything's working in a mix. And you just have to listen to it
Yeah, just phone
so many fucking
speaker is
times.
also
Yeah.
like listen to it in
Hmm.
mono. Like
Yeah.
everyone was doing
Oh.
like
Hmm.
AirPods for a minute. It's just like this is it. This is how it's 95% of people are doing it.
Yep. Yeah. Sorry, I just totally went on my own tangent and derailed us here. But so yeah, so you're like honing your skills, cutting your chops. I don't think that's right. Is that right? But yeah,
Busting?
what's that?
Not busting chops either. It's
No, you
something.
were busted. Is it? You're
Getting your chops.
Yeah, getting your chops. Yeah, like
Cutting your
as a
teeth.
producer, cutting your teeth. There you go. I like that. Um, so Well, unless you had more to say about what you were talking about. If not, where does this transition into designing or wanting to design? Because this is the first module, right? And you're talking about when you were in college, so this could have been a while ago.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I mean
but
the
was
story
this
has
kind?
legs.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, let's keep going then. Let's keep
Well, we
going.
can fast forward a little bit, but like
I mean, we
I
don't
was.
have to. I mean, we're only 15 minutes in, and we got 45 more minutes. So let's do it.
But I think like a lot of like modular people, I got into Max MSP and Reactor, and like I've been virtual
Before
patching.
before modular.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
same thing. Money. It was
Hmm.
always like
Totally. Yeah.
these look super cool, and like there wasn't that much in like the early 2000s too. There was like
Yeah.
synthesizers.com and like Buchlas, and it's just like, no, I can't. 2 grand?
Yeah.
No,
And
no way.
also, like, you couldn't just go down, like, it's still even hard depending on where you live, but like, you couldn't go and like try them out. It's not like those were at Musician's Friend at the time,
Yeah.
or something like that. So,
Yeah, and like the whole entire copy paste of it all too, where it's like, man, if I had two big muffs, like I could really make this sound cool. But it's like, no,
totally.
I
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
just make two. I have a special trick up my sleeve.
Right.
And so, yeah, this module is actually like a version of a very old Reactor patch. Like
Oh,
I've been
cool.
chasing the lo-fi sound for
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I looked at it. It was like a 12-year-old file. Like was the created at date. And like I got into Eurorack probably like 10 years ago at this point, and like
Okay.
um,
It's like
or
the
do we know?
Harvest Band make noise,
Yeah,
IntelliGel kind of. Yeah.
and the same guy that I used to do like tracker stuff with in high school, he bought me like the Tip Top Happy Ending kit, and
Oh,
like
fuck yeah.
it was like I got you a power supply and some rails, and it was like you can't do anything with this, and then like immediately,
That's how
oh, I get
there's always that fucking friend, isn't there? I
yeah, it's
just
like
did that to a friend. He was over last night and we were laughing about how I told him because he got super into guitar and pedals. And I was like, you're going to get into modular. You just don't know it yet. And he's like, nah. And like, he has a pretty robust system now. So,
it doesn't take much these days.
yeah. Yeah. But if you have a friend who's willing, then that just shows you how much your friend is into it and how important it was to him to
Yeah,
have you get into it too. Because my best friend Justin, who I grew up being in bands with and everything, actually he's the one who like got me started like understanding DAWs and how to mix and stuff. Um, when a couple of years ago, I didn't give it to him, but it was like, this is yours as long as you want it. And if you end up wanting it, like you can have whatever you want out of this, but it was a tip top ending and it was just a full voice. And he had it for a couple months and he's like, yeah, I don't really use it. And I'm just like, all right, this is a learning moment for me. Like, just because I love it, like I can't
doesn't
force
click for
this, but
everyone.
I'm going to try. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, But it's also like when you put out like you're around a group of friends, you're like, you gotta watch this YouTube, and you're just staring at them, and you're like, when are you gonna laugh? When are you gonna laugh? Okay,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
stop for
yeah,
you.
yeah. Yeah, I almost like sometimes with something like that have to leave the room. I'm like, because I'm just going to talk to you about it through it for, ask you what
Yeah,
you, and it's like, I got to get out of my own
it's
way.
funny, I guess. Or like, it's the funniest thing you've ever seen. Conor O'Malley is
Yeah,
a
yeah.
genius.
Oh my God, dude. Yes.
Yeah.
Fucking Connor O'Malley is a genius. Oh my God, that dude is fucking hilarious.
He just put out a bunch of merch, and I'm like, do I need a 5G hoodie? I maybe do. I maybe need it.
Fuck, I might need a 5G hoodie. Yeah, fuck. It's summertime, but nice. Okay. Cool. Sorry. Yeah. I'm a big comedy guy, but like not comedy is a different beast these days than it was when I got super into it, and just excited to see people like Tim Robinson and the Connor O'Malley's, like
Yeah.
doing the important work.
Yeah. I mean, you had Doug Pound on here recently, right?
Oh
Like he's
yeah, yeah. Doug's been on twice, yeah, and I've just been a huge fan of Tim and Eric. Well, obviously with me, Tom Goes the Mayor and Tim and Eric. But as I became like such a head, a Tim and Eric head, I started realizing just how integral Doug was to what made Tim and Eric Tim and Eric.
yeah.
And I started just learning more and more. Of course, dude, I'm in the process of covering it up, but like early, I got the season 3 DVD cover of Tim and Eric, and it's
I
just
can
like
kind of
the
say, yeah, the blue.
shittiest tattoo. But it's also like a shitty, like it's like a smeared, shitty looking design.
Right.
So, yeah, my friend who's still a tattoo artist, he's actually doing all of this cover up of all the tattoos that he did on me for practice because we were, best
Yeah.
buds. But yeah, the Tim and Eric one, my wife was like, "Oh, thank God that is like going away because
I
people."
like
Yeah,
it, but I don't need to see it every day.
yeah, just two fucking goofy faces staring at you. Yeah, so yeah. So okay, how did we get into the comedy thing? Where were we?
Funny YouTubes, Conor
Funny YouTube's.
O'Malley.
Oh yeah, showing people stuff and hope your buddy gave you a tip top happy ending power supply.
And then I,
The rest is history.
just kept going and
Yeah.
kept going. Now I have boxes of them back there and trying to get rid of them.
Yeah,
My wife,
yeah.
your wife wants Tim and Eric tattoo gone. My wife wants these boxes gone.
Oh, dude. Well, before we got this house, and my wife like so graciously was like, "Yeah, you can just have one of the 3 bedrooms for your studio. Not all of the same stuff, but my setup for podcasting and everything was like in our dining room and living room were kind of like one big open thing, and I just had the corner, and it was just synth. So I had my little chaos
Yeah,
corner. So yeah,
I'm in a tiny New York apartment. I've got
oh
like
yeah,
the
yeah.
guitar amp down here. I got the synth over there. I've got the warehouse back there. I sleep there. I work here. I don't leave this room like 22 hours a day. It's kind of a sad state of affairs right
Hey,
now.
that's what this is my. That's why I've just been like going. I mean, I don't think I can move the camera enough for you to see, but just like you can see, I've got the acoustic tiles,
Yep.
up on the ceiling, and I've got more for the corners, and I'm just constantly like rearranging and trying to get efficiency. I got my amp right there, and
Well, you got to get more
yeah,
stuff, and you need somewhere to put it. It's the
dude, no, oh my God, well, yeah, what's not in. Well, yeah, I don't. I'm going to go off on another tangent, and we're here to talk about you, so I'm not going to do that. But yeah, I understand the struggle is real.
So yeah, I got super into synths, which great. Like I'm a software engineer by day, and I think like many
In
people.
music or just general? Okay.
Now I work
Okay.
website stuff. I work for a company called Food 52,
Okay.
selling pots and pans and putting recipes online. But yeah,
Okay.
like the tactility, like after being
Mhm.
able to copy and paste stuff forever and like just being at the computer all day, it's really nice to just be like, I only have one of these. How do I maximize it? Like, what am I going to use it for?
Yeah.
Touching a knob instead of looking at a screen. Like, yeah, that really clicked with me at that point in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Started doing some Arduino stuff for fun and work, and then the Electrosmith Daisy stuff. I wanted to make a guitar pedal,
Yeah.
and went pretty far down that rabbit hole. Pandemic happened, supply chain happened, or supply chain problems happened, and
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, there's a box of circuit boards somewhere for that unfinished project.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then some stuff came back in stock, and I was like, why am I making a guitar pedal? This should be a module. And pretty easy to port stuff over. And like,
Yeah.
once it's not quite the same thing of like just making one and then making a bunch more, but like, it's like, I think this is good enough. I want to put it out. I need something
Mm-hmm.
to be
Well, and
proud
the
of. And
Daisy platform is like that's, and if you already know what you're doing with, you have all this experience with previous things, like that thing is the audio
yeah,
uh
they figured it
thing.
all
Yeah.
out. Like,
Yeah.
big ups to Andrew and Steven. Like, yeah,
Yeah. That was a
they've
big
been,
game changer, right? From what I understand, as far as like for developers and stuff.
yeah,
Making
like doing stuff in Arduino. There, it's like noisy and like it's possible. There's a lot of open source stuff and it works, but then like, the STM32 is the chip that they use and all the mutable modules use,
Mhm.
and like, just here's a USB port. Here's how the tool chaining works, so you can just upload it, and pretty great documentation all over. Lots of help. The forum's great. Like it's really opened things up.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and is with, I don't know, like I've already said pretty much what I know about Daisy, but like is that something that's similar to what am I thinking of? It's kind of like a mini version of Max that you can use for like Critter and Guitari, use it for like the organelle and
It is called Pure Data.
Pure Data. Yeah, yeah. So can you like write on Pure Data and then port that into like Daisy stuff, or like am I, or is this a question that's so dumb because I understand so little
No,
about
no,
software engineering that we
no such thing as dumb questions. Um, I never got into the pure data world. I feel like people have worked on that. So like, yeah, you can just like export out the pure, like run a version of pure data or something like that. I'm
Mm-hmm,
sure people
mm-hmm.
in the comments will tell me how I'm wrong, but and they definitely also have like Max or Cycling 74 makes like Rainbow now, so where you just export stuff as C++ code. So it's all like kind of coming together, but you're
Mm-hmm.
still writing a lot of code and a lot of DSP code, which was new to me, but luckily the internet's got a lot of answers on there for you.
Yeah, yeah. And with the DSP thing, like I know that became like, is that still kind of something that makes instrument designers nervous as far as like the supply chain with that? Because I know like it's used in everything now, like especially in cars with all how much like the car companies are basically just like buying up a lot of the supply, or is that kind of like evening itself out?
It seems like it's evening itself out. Like as
Okay.
far as I can tell, anything that I've like tried to get has been available. I had a when I was prototyping stuff, like the prices. I mean, if you get stuff directly from China, it's just way cheaper.
For
And
sure.
they
You
have,
have to get a bunch of it, but like, yeah,
yeah, if you're
for
making
it,
like 10 prototypes, it's like, oh, that's like 40 or like, I think it was like 400 jacks I had to get. And it was like, oh, I can get it on Mouser, but like, what's the price difference? And
you'd
China
probably
shuts
end up
down
paying more. Oh yeah. Yeah.
for Lunar New Year. But no, even with
Hmm.
shipping, it's like everything was so much cheaper to go through China, and everything was in
Yeah.
stock. And it was like,
Hmm.
all right, I guess you could say we're back.
Yeah. Okay. That's good news because, like, of course, with just the way the news is just the infinite doom scroll tar pit, like I feel
Yeah,
like a lot of my designer friends and people I've talked on the show with, like throughout the pandemic and stuff, there was serious concern about like, is there going to be much of a future for like digital audio design and um as far as instruments go and stuff. So yeah, that's good to hear.
seems okay from my perspective.
You heard it here, folks.
Jason said it seems
Jason
okay.
said.
Quote me on
Okay.
that.
So you're designing stuff, you have this idea for wear and tear, but then you work. So if I'm understanding what you're saying right so far, during the pandemic or maybe before, you were working on a different design, then supply chain shuts down, and is that what kind of made you consider start working on wear and tear again, or?
I just I just shelved it, and then I probably somewhere in the desk I got the guitar pedal. Like I got cases printed. Like I was the same thing
Oh,
that I was
you
doing
were
for
full on doing guitar pedal of wear and tear.
yeah. It says it, but
Oh,
I got to dig it out now. But
I see. Yeah, I got to see it now.
um, we're doing
Luckily, we can
eight.
edit first, so don't feel like on the spot to like try to get to it. But I'm going to pull up really quick just my shot of the wear and tear module so we can look at them at the same time for the viewer.
Look at that. So yeah, original pedal is gonna look like this.
Oh, whoa. Okay, so you even like not when you
Yeah,
said like
it
those are
was.
full on. Fuck,
Yeah, you can see
dude.
Daisy Seed back here.
Yeah.
So,
How many of those do you have?
I don't know. There's probably like a dozen prototypes. You can even see a little Ampersand Ampersand logo down here. Like this has
Dude.
been
Well,
a while
if
coming.
one of those should ever need a home and want to maybe talk some trade or something like that, or
Yeah, well,
we can talk off camera, but I'm also a huge pedal head. In fact, speaking of pedals and wear and tear and stuff, I think one of the things that really drew me into like vibing with it right away is have you used the Recovery Effects cutting room floor?
no, I haven't. I'm familiar with it though.
Yeah, so I'll just hold this up really quick as a comparison just to explain why I'm bringing them up. So, Greg Markle, from Recovery Effects, we met along like 15 years ago, probably, and I got super into his pedals, and that was kind of like the beginning of how I ended up in modular. But this, I use a lot of his fuzz and delay and weird pedals, but this is basically like a tape echo, and it's got the flutter wow, and an overdrive on it, and a freeze button, and this like it's I don't want to say it's become part of my sound as an artist because that's I just feel like a douche saying that, and I'm the only one who would know that. But like
Right.
it shows up on everything, and I just love what it does for guitar. And I've never wanted it. I've never thought like, oh, I wish it kind of did this. Like I kind of have the same settings almost every time because it's what I like.
Dialed in.
But it's really cool to have something like this that has a lot of the similar types of things, but like once you start exploring wear and tear, you realize, oh yeah, this is they're in a different, they're in the same family, but it's scratching a similar itch, but also scratching a totally new itch that I didn't know I had until
Yeah, and like
So,
working on it. Well, thank you for saying that. It's really
mhm.
nice.
Yeah, of course.
But like,
Thank
yeah,
you for
how many
making it.
knobs can you put on a guitar pedal? And like, oh, here's alt functions, and it's like, no one's bending
Yeah.
down to do that. And like, that's kind of
Mhm.
when I started picking it up again. I was like, I need like more knobs. And
Mhm.
like people in the comments and like some Reddit thread or something were like, "Are you gonna make a 4 HP version?" I was like, "You're lucky, I got it down to 16."
A 4 HP. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Also, like, I don't know. This it does a lot. Like bigger modules, especially like effects processors that have this much range and control. Like, I am fine with them, and sometimes am stoked that they're you
Yeah, I
know
think the other side of it is
more
like
these.
when it is like a multi effects, and then like when in mode B, tape delay, this knob, parameter B, and you're just like, I don't have the memory for that anymore. And so it's just like, this
Yeah,
just does this. Everything's
yeah,
labeled. You can see what it is. If that's what you want, I believe that there's people out there that it is what they want. If it's not what you want, don't use it, right? Like that's kind of,
absolutely, 100%. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so you shelved it. Pandemic shelved it as a pedal, and then you're like, fuck this, I'm making a module. When is that decision made?
I think it was probably like November or December 2023. So right at the beginning of this year. And just ported the code over. I got one of
Whoa, it
those
happened that fast?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't take me more than a couple days to like reconfigure everything and like get a little prototype going.
Were you
I was
so the person sorry, but the people who did the pedal, um, was it the same who ended up doing the module? So did you already have that working relationship, or did you have to like?
So the pedal, I did all the circuit, the PCB design by myself in
Well,
KiCad,
I guess maybe
KiCad.
like the manufacturing and like the like distribution or whatever.
So yeah, never came to life. So never got there. But I was like, I'm very bad at soldering, and I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do
Yeah,
this. Like,
yeah,
this is no longer a fun project if I'm just huffing solder fumes all day every
yeah,
day
yeah,
and then
and probably a lot of
toxic.
SMD and
Yeah, I started looking into it. It was really hard to find. And then um, for modular stuff, like some of it can be SMD. And I was like, this is an amount of soldering I could do. And then was talking to Andrew over at Qubit and Electrosmith, and he was like, man, we have these special jacks that we've made that like you don't have to solder them. We can turnkey it for you. And I was like, how do we make this happen? Like,
That's awesome.
If you're telling me I don't have to solder, like I'll go in and put some money down and get some of these made. I'm not very good at circuit board design. I watch a lot of YouTubes, but I no clue. Like so many things I would get manufactured, they'd come back, they wouldn't work. I was like trying to figure out what's going on. It's like, oh,
because you have how many layers can you do like within just the PCB and
1 to 16 or something.
That's insane. Yeah, it's not just the traces you see when you look at the back of the module. So,
and I'm a generalist. I'm a jack of all trades, and it was just like I am competent enough to do this, and also smart enough to know that I'm doing it wrong. And that's, so,
being above 40, right?
Yeah,
like, I just feel like so I just turned 40 this year, and I feel myself like easing into that, and just with every day, I'm just like, yeah, it's better just to be like, just play to your strengths, but don't be afraid to ask for some help from people who are good at what you can do.
If you enjoy doing it, have at it. Like that doesn't matter.
100%. Yes, that's a great thank you for that. Because like I said, I'm just sliding into it, but that's a perfect tag for this, new proclamation that I'm making.
But I'd watch these YouTube videos, like go into KiCad, do it, order the circuit boards, sit on my hands for 2 weeks waiting for them to show up. They wouldn't work, and be like, oh, I figured out, make a change, wait another 2 weeks. I was just like, I can't. This is driving me.
That's tough.
And so I got put in touch with Nick over at Infrasonic Audio, and he was like, yeah, I can do this for you. This seems like fairly straightforward. I cannot emphasize enough both how great it was working with Nick, how easy it was working with Nick, how professional he is. And he took my rat's nest of a design and like made it work first go. Like the LEDs came on in the way that they were supposed to, and I was just like, "This is unbelievable!" It's like a kid on Christmas morning. Like it works. It works. Can you like? And then go and show everybody like the lights come on. It's like, so what does it do? It's like the lights come on.
Yeah.
Like I can change it from red to green. Isn't that really cool?
Totally. That's like similar to showing my wife the newest mix of the track she's heard like a million. And not only has she heard it when I'm listening to it, she hears me when I'm tracking it. She's like, "Can you close your door or use headphones?" I'm like, "Yeah, probably should have done that a while." Yeah. But yeah, okay. Well, again, I'm just the king of derailment and tangents. But so right here to the left of your module is my module that's going to be coming out in September, I believe. And so, yeah, like we ordered they're ordered and they're on their way. Like all, so we're amping up to, and it is super exciting to get like, this is the thing that we've been working on for so long, and it works and it's cool. And
it's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Super cool, man. Congrats.
And then
I'm so happy for you.
Get a ton of boxes, and then a bunch more manuals, and you start sorting screws, and then you're...
Luckily, I'm not going to be in that phase. Like, it's all going to be built when it shows up. It's just going to need knobbed and boxed to sell, and I'm not going to do any of that. So my part's done. I just have to talk about it here. So for those of you listening, the Keanu Matrix mixer will be out hopefully in a couple months. Yeah. God, okay. I'm not
going to... the LEDs working. Everything's working.
Everything's working. Yeah. And oh, wait, there's even more LEDs you didn't even see. But look, there's these ones too. You're like, wait, it's a matrix mixer. What are the LEDs and how are they flashing with nothing plugged in? Ladies and gentlemen, this is a matrix module with onboard modulation sources, but you can not use them if you don't want to by just plugging something in, and because these are normaled into each channel. So two function generators and like two meandering, basically like weird LFOs.
Amazing.
Yeah, VCAs for the outputs, unipolar, bipolar switch, and yeah, some other cool like CV outs and ins as well. But Yeah, Matrix, I just said I wasn't going to talk about my module, but really quick, I'll wrap it up because we're gearheads, and I'm sure like you look at a piece of gear, you're probably like, I kind of want to know a
Yeah.
little bit about what that is. Um, that's just how I make myself feel better about hijacking your interview.
Keep going. Don't show me your face. Show me the module. Let's go.
Yeah,
Let's
here
go.
we go. There we go. So channel 1 right here, we have our rise and fall for function generator 1. So we have a trigger input. Right now it's in looping mode. So if I turn that off, I can trigger it. There is the input that will, just turn off this. Well, it doesn't turn the function generator off as much as you can actually use it like you would like a maths or whatever, where you can add your rise and fall to the signal that you're putting in.
Got it.
But you don't need to. And then there are rise and fall trigger outs. So that's just doubled. The first 2 channels are the same exact thing.
Right.
And then channels 3 and 4, they are they each come from 3 different oscillators, the same 3 oscillators. But I don't know, like basically I had the idea of what I wanted it to do in my head, and then Lenny after later is the one who made it happen. So I can't even really speak to exactly what's happening, but basically what you have here, this frequency knob controls the speed of those 3 oscillators, and you can see that they're bipolar, whether you're in bipolar mode or not, and you can see that they're not blinking in unison, so they're not the exact same thing. Right, yeah, and then you can add slew because they're square waves. You can add slew to those. And so there's frequency control for each of the 3 oscillators, and then there's CV in for your 2 slews, and of course your inputs if you want to just break the normalization here. These slews will also apply to your incoming voltage. And then on each output, we have a VCA input, so you can use an external envelope if you wanted to control the output of what you're controlling on the matrix. So in unipolar mode on channel 1, here's our channel 1 contrls. It's just 0
I just put
all the way
piano
up.
And matrix together. That's
right.
Yeah, of course. Sorry,
I'm not even like a huge like matrix fan, but I was just like, well, you got to name it something.
Yeah.
And all matrix mixers are called like blah, blah, blah matrix mixers. So I'm like, Keanu's a
4x4. Yeah. That's great.
And then the last thing is when it's in bipolar mode, center is 0, and then left is negative, right is positive. So channel 1, 2, 3, and 4. Use it as an audio mixer. And as a voice if you really wanted, because you can do audio rate with all of them as well. So I'm pretty stoked because like I had to work within analog parameters because the person who was going to design the circuit for me, Lenny, only does analog design. So I was like, well, what can you do that's new in analog if you're me and not an engineer? And I've always liked matrix mixers, but I've never really like held on to one in my case because they're always just they're so big usually, and you need at least 4 other modules to make them do anything. So I was thinking like, okay, this is an expensive hobby. People have limited space, and I know this is a big module, but this is this has a lot of fucking stuff on it. Like you can get a lot of
internal modulation is clutch.
Yeah. All right, so this has been Tim interrupting his guest's story to tell his own. And welcome back to Podular Modcast. The Novation circuit tracks. I've recently just loaded my own samples into it, and if I liked it before, it is just a whole new beast now. And I know I keep mentioning this when I bring these circuit tracks up. Whatever preconceived notions I may have had about this type of piece of gear, your mid-range price, battery powered small things, those are all gone. This is a real tool, and it is especially nice for modular users with all of its different signal routing and blah blah blah, but I've mentioned that already. I just wanted to mention that really digging the circuit tracks, and not just because they're one of this week's sponsors. So if you want more information on the circuit tracks, click the link in the show description. So that excitement, I guess you just got me super excited, and I know that feeling. So I'm happy that you got that, and to have like it be ported over to a module and just work Like, yeah, it
I
works.
mean, it didn't just work, but
Okay, but like, well, I mean, I guess you did a lot of the legwork, like as far as the circuit
yeah.
and how it all works and stuff. But like the fact, it just seems like it happened really quickly, and that's not usually the case. Like Keanu has been done in design for probably 2 years. You know, it's just all of the stuff outside.
Well, I put all that legwork in when it was a
Mm-hmm.
reactor patch, right? So like,
Right, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
and like I knew what I wanted it to do, and like just it was really like a lot of it was like figuring out like knob placement and like what the alt params are, what are like, and all the beta testing and prototyping that I had sent out to people.
Can
Like,
I ask how you do that? Like, do you design like what, like have a, like think about what you want the panel layout to be before you, and then draw it before you start thinking about like the circuit, and then
so,
drawing it, or
so what I did, which is a very nerdy thing, is paper prototyped it.
whoa, dude, that's next level. That's amazing.
Hey, you're lucky that I'm
Wait, can
sitting
you
here.
hold that up again?
I can. So you have some constraints because everything is certain sizes, so you can't put
Right.
knobs where it'll cut through the other side of the board where it's short, so you just need to put things around there. Some important things to do is to make sure that you can get your fingers between them. This is
Yeah.
the earlier version, which on the screen
Yeah,
looked fine. You can't turn any single knob because
I
I
get
did it
it.
wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's one of those frustrating things of just waiting weeks for things to come back, and then you're like,
Yeah.
oh, that makes perfect sense. I
Yeah.
should have seen that.
And then you start thinking like, well, can I use those just like your smaller like control knobs, that just like the pots that have the knob just sticking straight up, whatever those are called. Like, well, did you like find yourself being like, well, it could all be those knobs, and then you're like, no, they can't, they
Nah,
can't.
aesthetics
Yeah,
matter. Yeah, it's
yeah,
like,
yeah, for sure.
and then some stuff too, where it's like, if this is something that you're trying to tune, like especially like the LFOs for like WoW or Flutter, it's like, can you really
Hmm.
dial it in where you want on that tiny thing? So like,
Totally. Yeah.
it's this. I have so many spreadsheets of like different versions of it, and like trying it, sending it to people, and they're like, "Oh no, I use this knob way more. I never touch the noise at all." And like, it just evolved, and you have to take that feedback in, and
Totally.
sometimes disagree with it, and sometimes be like, "That was really smart. Thank you so much. I
Hmm.
will put your name in the manual and your
I get
acknowledgments."
it. Real quick, I'm not going to hijack this again, but this is my process. I like
Yeah,
do painting. So this was the final. Obviously, it doesn't look exactly like Keanu now, but that's how I would send them to Lenny. I would, make a legend.
yeah,
This is what this means, and by turning it into an art project, I could battle my ADHD and actually,
yeah.
get it done and whatnot. So, but man, that paper thing is like, can you, if you remember when we're done, can you snap a picture of that and send it to me? Because like I would like to put like a picture of it, like
Speaking of
in the.
ADHD, if I don't do it right now, it's not going to
Yeah, no
happen. So,
shit, right? You too? Are you a fellow ADHD man?
I've got probably 20 Chrome tabs open in this other window that we're not looking at. So and my leg
Nice.
is just bouncing the entire time, and I'm not nervous to chat about the thing I'm very proud of. So, yeah, I have.
Dude,
Yeah,
okay, so fidget spinners, I've always thought they're stupid, gimmicky, and but I am a leg bouncer. If I'm sitting and listening to somebody like about something that's not modular, that that's like, it's not a fun conversation, but I need to be present. Like my leg will bounce. I pace. I get up and walk around. If I'm on the
yeah.
phone, I will walk
Oh, yeah.
laps around. Um, but
I just
my
take phone calls
wife.
when I walk the dog. Now I'm just like, I'm going
Oh,
to
me
just walk
too.
anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, for sure. I'm like, sometimes I'm like, I have to make this phone call, or I want to talk to this friend. I do need a walk, So like, I'll just Bluetooth
It's healthy
headphones and
for you.
just go for the walk. Yeah, exactly. But she bought me like this like grab bag of like different types of like fidget toys, and I was like, come on, like that's kind of dumb.
Yeah.
The actual spinner one, it 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 satiates that
Right. You
like
just
it's because it's
restlessness.
something else you're fucking with. Yeah, and it's like, oh my god, I'm a fidget spinner person, and I don't know what to tell you other
Yeah.
than that, guys. Like
That's
it's what it is.
I have all like my desk is just cluttered with shit right now, but the
Mhm.
buttons for that like are inside the mount, like I have just those all over the place, and so I'm just like clicking them on meetings, and
Oh yeah, yeah,
it's like
yeah.
oh they could hear that for sure. I need something
Uh-huh.
else.
Steering wheel drumming,
Oh yeah,
and then like when you can find a groove with a blinker, like
yeah.
yeah, nothing drives.
Practicing double
Other.
bass every chance I can. You know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's so funny. And our ADHD brought us off. What? So why did that come up?
Paper prototyping.
Paper prototyping, right? So I wonder, like, so I was going to ask, like, just the look of that and the care that it would take to make what you made out of paper. Like, are you also like, do you do graphic design, or have you been like an artist your whole life as well? Because that looks pretty fucking. I couldn't do that.
I am really good at computers, and I can
Uh
draw
huh. Yeah,
boxes
yeah.
and make them all line up real nice. Again, like
Uh
I was
huh.
like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but my wife is a graphic designer, mostly
Oh,
print
cool.
actually, and so
Okay.
like yeah, she did like all the panel stuff and like the boxes and like
Oh, that's
manuals.
awesome.
She's like, oh, you want to make a 32-page manual, Jason? Okay,
Oh,
you
I'm
know
so
that's like
glad you brought that up. Your manual is top notch. It's like one of the best fucking manuals, not only in information but in presentation. Like fucking kudos, man. I'm so
I'll
glad
tell
that that
her.
came up because I've been wanting to. That was something that I've been thinking about. Um, in preparation for this, I'm going to put it up really quick on the screen for those looking. So now you can see here's the module. So for scale, it's a nice size, good big printing, nice colors, great font, all the information you need. The signal flow, that I mean, like that's especially for something like this. If this is somebody's first, experience getting into, like tape emulation, saturation as an effect, I think this is fucking clutch. Um, but yeah, like it's
Yeah,
and
my
you
wife.
have extra information, but it's like you can continue on if you want the extra information. But here's what you do. That I think that's a really good feature of a manual. Do you see what I mean? Like you
Well,
kind
I of
of like,
course see what you mean, but yeah,
yeah. I just, I mean, this like it's a piece of art. I want to like again ADHD thing, but I'm always carrying books and journals and stuff with me everywhere I go, even if I don't look at them or use them. But like this is one of those things that I've been taking around with me because I'm just I'm gonna learn a bit about this
well,
and
I cannot wait to tell Molly all about that. She'll be incredibly happy.
yeah, way
But
to go.
and like we all have a lot of modules. That's how it goes. And
Mhm.
sometimes you get what I think when I was going through stuff, the whimsical wraps scroll, and you're like, "This is cool. This is clever." I'm just going to look at the PDF online. Like, there's when am I going to reference this? And I
Oh,
think
absolutely. Oh, 100%. Yes, yes. I see what you're saying too.
like the
Mhm.
mutable manuals are great. Like just
Mhm.
as much information as you need, no more, no less. But like, it's always
4MS does
exciting.
a good job too. Yeah.
And it was really important to me. Like, I was like, modules are expensive. Like, throw stuff in there. Like, what is something? How is this make it feel like you've got something for your money that you've
Yeah.
worked hard for and spent? And so, yeah, I was just full
I
color.
think
We got to
there's
do it.
yeah, I think there's also like when you're first like getting into that, like, and I'm only speaking as somebody who has had the very like privileged position of being able to just be like, hey, will you like make this idea I have work? But working for After Later for a couple years and doing a couple modules, like getting to see how the sausage is made and how the modules are made. Um, I think at first you're like, well, I don't want to create more waste, and I
Yeah.
don't. And then, but you're like, these manuals, and not that it's like, well, I'm already doing it, so I'll just lean into it. These manuals don't come close to the what it takes to produce all the like the components, the electrical components
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
everything. Like not even fucking like a drop in the bucket in comparison, I think,
We're
as far
not
as I understand. So make the
strip
manual.
mining mountains for rare earth materials.
Yeah, yeah.
It's okay.
Uh, so yeah. Um, and some, and it's fine because, like you said, you can just go straight online for the PDF. And like, honestly, I do that with most of the modules, but I have a stack of manuals that I keep on hand because I, it's the same thing with like a soft synth versus a modular system. I am so much more tactical.
Exactly.
So like I would, if it's on hand, I would always 100% always take the physical copy over the PDF, like
Yeah, and no shame if you're just making the
absolutely.
small one sheeter or whatever it is, but it's also like, yeah, maybe you won't lose this one. It's a little bigger,
Hmm.
and
Also, it's your first module,
yeah, I
like
mean, I got to
you're
go all out.
excited about it. Yeah.
I
Fuck yeah,
was.
dude. Yeah. Yeah. Um, all right. Okay. The ADHD boys are just like, this is, I don't even know why I'm acknowledging it. This is what I've been doing this for 6.5 years. People know what happens when they come to Podula Modcast. Tim can get excited and manic and just be like all over the place. Um, what was I going to ask? Because I have a few more things that I wanted to. Let's talk about what it does because we're already. I mean, we can go over an hour, but we haven't even done that yet. So let's
No,
let's let's go through the module. Let's talk about what it does. Unless you had more to say about what you were
no. Let's
talking about.
we can do that forever.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's
totally.
like back to the earlier one. It's guided by voices in a box. It's lo-fi. It's
Oh, that's a really good way to put it. I like it.
no, but like I've always used like Sketch Cassette and like there's a couple other VSTs and like they do what I want, but I'm like, oh, I've just had like a couple more things. I'm
Hmm.
always a little bummed when like something says it's a tape saturator and it's like it does something, but I need it to like really bottom out. It needs to be
Hmm.
borderline distortion.
Hmm.
So a lot of care into the saturation algorithm. And then I used to have this pedal. Do you ever have one of the Frost Wave?
No, I'm not familiar with that.
The guitar player that I used to play with had one. It's I think Mogwai used them. It's
Okay.
the Korg
Oh, a
Korg
Korg
style
pedal.
low pass. It was made by
Oh.
some Australian people, but it's
Oh, okay.
low pass, high pass in a box. And
Okay.
so you could do like super cool resonant sweeps, and like we played in a shoegaze band, so he was doing lots of that through delay.
Not
But that
multi-mode, but you could do that at the same. You could use high pass and low pass at the same time on like
exactly.
and make a stereo signal out of a mono. Was that the idea or
It was mono. Actually, I'm pretty sure it was mono. But
okay?
you just have like, but it was two separate filters, and so you get two
Gotcha.
resonant points, and
Hmm.
like that through like a Fender Twin Reverb with like
Yeah.
I think like the Head Rush pedal was popular at the time. But like I was like, yeah, this sounds awesome, and so that's why there's low pass and high pass resonant filters on it. Though some people are like, you don't
Which
need that. I was like, no, you
no,
do.
dude. Honestly, like I would say both or none. From my experience using this, because when I use like not to say that it doesn't sound good when I use one, but everything that I've done with it so far, and I haven't like I've only had it like a week and a half or whatever. But whenever I start using one filter, I'm like, well, what would it sound like? There's another one. What would it
Yeah,
sound like if I did that? And it's always like, oh, that bumped it up. That's cool, you know.
yeah.
And then to adjust their resonance of amplitude or levels individually is also fucking sweet. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like same sort of thing. Like the other, like I enjoy like driving the resonance right in that goes into the saturation. If you look at the diagram in the
Mm-hmm.
manual,
Mm-hmm.
but the other way around, where it's like if you just want like low pass, like you want that like sort of like in the trunk of someone's car, lo-fi
Yep.
kind of thing. It's like there you go, you just have that.
Mm-hmm.
You want old timey AM radio, just use the high pass. Like you know, it can do a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of different things. Um, noise is just like some white noise that has some special little perks to it. Um,
It's all audible frequencies played at the same time at the same amplitude.
correct.
Yeah.
But you can filter those too
Yep.
and add some fun little modulation to that with the color. It's not like white to pink or anything. It'll just add more sporadicness to it. And then WoW
Well,
and
okay,
Flutter.
so I did want to ask about that. So expound upon that because I don't fully understand what you mean by that, and that is one of the questions that I was like, I want to get some clarification on the color.
Yeah. So, I've listened to a lot of bad cassettes in my life, and this
Uh
is
huh.
what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's not just hiss, right? So if like you
Right.
have the color all the way down, it's just pure hiss. And so as you add color to it. It sort of like has like a spiky kind of modulation to it, so it'll like come in and out. It's a little bit of low pass filtering to it. Um,
And is that modulation source, is that coming from the whatever the dust is, or the dust basically opens the floodgates of one of
right,
the LFOs that controls the flutter or wow?
dust
Or
does its own thing, man. It's
oh, okay, okay, yeah. This is also what I love about it is like I haven't read the manual. I just look when I'm like, because I like to use something as much as I can before I try to understand it on my own first, and then once I
right.
get to the point, um, so yeah, so I've been I had a misconception about what the dust. I misunderstood slightly what that is.
So I
So
think dust is basically moving the color knob every once in a while to just kind of give you like psh, like the sort
okay,
of
but
like
does it
more.
also control like random modulation to everything else, or
Yeah,
just the it's everything,
it's
right?
yeah, it's macro everything, kind of just
Hmm.
doing weird little triggers of the
But I
noise
guess like
bump.
so it has its own random
Yep,
um, voltage output that you control the randomness and the like amplitude of with that knob.
exactly.
Okay,
So
cool.
how often do I want these weird little spikes of
Hmm.
mischief, and then like how much mischief to do when there's spikes, or really what the
Right.
range of them is.
Okay.
Uh,
Right.
and does like little like tape snags as well. So like WoW and Flutter are not quite like sinusoidal. They're their own little weird algorithms, but Dust will just do like a little bleep and bloop of just like here's just a little like
Does
somebody
it
touched the
like add a
finger to the tip.
spike or something? Okay. So
Yeah.
does it just like modulate the frequency or shape of the LFO that I'm assuming is at the heart of Flutter and WoW? Or I guess it's digital, so it's not like a low. It's not like an actual oscillator, or
Well,
I
there's
guess it's
oscillator code.
yeah. Of course. Right.
Um,
So when I get into digital, I am so out of my
but
like depth.
yeah,
So.
but you can do it. It's all the
Hmm.
same, right? Like
Hmm.
I think of like when these things are manipulating other things, it's like it's a patch cable, and like we're gonna run it through a
Totally.
VCA, and how
Right.
much LFO are we applying to this thing?
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, Dust is kind of doing a little bit of WoW and Flutter, it's changing those shapes so they're like less periodic, and just it's
Hmm.
like
Which
a
I love, by the way. That's so
more
useful.
random everywhere is the best way of.
Exactly. Okay. Cool.
And then WoW and Flutter like are real. Those are like technical terms. Like
Yeah.
people that are real audiophiles are measuring how much their vinyl records or old cassette players, like how much it deviates from its expected uh, playback pure tone. If you ever aligned a tape machine, that's like one of the things you measure with a
Right.
oscilloscope.
Hmm. That makes sense.
Um, Crinkles, just like little dropouts here and there.
I love the crinkle with that's one of my favorite aspects of it so far. I really like what that
Those are in
does.
stereo too. Like that's one of the things that
Hmm.
I'm always like, yeah, just like add some stuff to the stereo field. So it's like your
God.
little drone comes alive.
Hmm. Do you hear that?
I do.
I
What is it?
fuck it. It's one of those people who's very proud of how loud their motorcycle is.
Oh, amazing.
I love them. I bet they'd be interested in this conversation.
Yeah, yeah. We could talk about the noise floor with them too.
Yeah, right. Dude, you're raising everybody's noise floor, motherfucker. Yeah, that's funny. Okay, yes, and I love too. So like, um, you know, the you have some some button combo things, but they're only three buttons, and it's really well designed in that way. But yeah, I love that just that you can add how much crinkle happens, and but also the depth with these two knobs. But then you can like, well, now I'm out of my depth already. I know that much, and I remember reading about this, but I can't speak about it. So since we're talking about crinkle, let's talk about the crinkle knob, the depth's relation to it, and then both of their sub functions or secondary functions.
Yeah. So crinkle is like the frequency, like how often do you want these little dropouts? Depth
Hmm.
is how deep are they? Like if you turn it all the way up, like you'll hear silence during those bits.
Right. So almost
Um,
kind of like a noise gate or a reversed noise gate or something.
Yeah, like your or
A
yeah,
square wave tremolo or something like that. Yeah.
that that's a pretty good one. So on the same side, like on crinkle, it's like how often do you want these dropouts to happen? The
Hmm.
time, the secondary parameter, is like how long do you want the dropouts to happen? So you can go
Right.
from something that's just like talking and like
Right.
there's no
Right.
no sound there
Okay.
to
So I was
just
misunderstanding that as like frequency of the dropouts, but that's length of the dropouts.
yeah. So that's time,
Gotcha. Okay.
and then
Gotcha.
variance is like, do we want this like more or less rhythmic or just totally random? Like how much?
Okay. Oh, okay. So at all the way left on variance, then am I right saying that it's like in time with whatever the clock of the module is, and
Other
then
way
as you
around.
go right, other way around. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Counterclockwise is periodic. Clockwise is rando central.
Rando Central. Fuck it. Nice. Okay. I have like, I mean, I know you're just like going through it, but I have a few more things that I want to say I really like about it. I want to talk about the noise, its envelope, and how and age, the noise and age together, like that has been where I've been
Yeah.
like finding the most gold as I'm using it. I guess is really dialing in those two parameters together.
Yeah. Do you know what dithering is?
Yeah, isn't that, well, maybe isn't that like kind of like weird aliasing with digital audio?
It
Does
is
that
that.
happen? Yeah.
But it's also like a visual term. But like
Okay.
um, like when you're watching TV and like you've got like it's not really TV anymore; it's all digital, and like the blacks, you can see it go like the gradients aren't there. It's like this
Oh,
is
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
100%. My TV does that, and I hate it.
So that's removing dithering because that is like a pure gradient change. So
Okay.
dithering is just like adding little dots to like you know change. Well, TV is nothing but dots, but so that you don't have one absolute value, but you have this sort of like
Uh-huh.
speckled way of going between two different things.
So is
It's
it, I mean, you could kind of think of it as not the same, like gain, either ISO for video or gain
yeah,
for an
yeah,
amplif. It's basically it's okay.
same thing.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Gotcha.
it.
Okay.
And the same thing happens with audio, where if you're recording absolute silence, like just having a little bit of noise, which is a form of dithering, just helps you know when more things are happening. So it's not just a 0 to 100. You have like these little bit of specs to like help you see where those changes are. Then,
Wow. Okay. Okay. Very
um, so that's something that I noticed was like noise is really just dithering. And so putting that into the saturation like really kind of changed it more of just like when the silence are out. And that's how real cassettes work, right? Because like they're noisy by nature that's a fun band name.
right. Yeah,
Um,
noisy by nature. Oh my god, dude. Let's
we're,
start a
we're,
band. We're
we're
starting
making
a
gold
band.
right here.
Yeah.
And so Age is doing something else, and like I'm with you. They all do play together. I think at some point there was a line between them, but Age is just like a low pass filter, but you're just changing the frequency all the time. And same thing with variance. Like how much do you want to change it? And
Right.
so as you turn Age clockwise, it's like how much low pass filter are you doing? How much variance you're doing? And that kind of makes its own noise kind of thing as
Mm-hmm.
well. It's
Mm-hmm.
almost like it's a little bit like MP3 compression, a little bit like that underwater sort of thing because it's
Yeah.
just
Yeah. Yeah.
changing fast enough. But yeah, putting noise and age together does something magical, and I'm glad that it's there.
For sure. Yeah. And I loved because, like I hadn't really thought about it. I'm glad that I didn't think about this way until just now. Um, because it's super obvious, but because of the way it's designed and how it works, how everything works in conjunction with each other, and some things work even closer. As far as the parameters on wear and tear, some of the parameters work even closer with each other than they do the other ones. Um, but yeah, it is like a low pass filter. But I didn't once think like, why are there two low pass filters on this? Because
Yeah,
it's low pass filtering something completely different and not in just a low passy filter way. So That's what, yeah.
And like, you know, you're saying you
Clapping my
don't
hands mentally.
like digital DSP, like it's the same. Like I tried putting the age before the saturation
Hmm.
algorithm, and it was like, oh well, yeah, what this is doing the same thing as the other thing. Like putting it after saturation, was like, oh yeah, this sounds more like a cassette. And like
Right. Yeah.
just thinking about it as patching of like this goes before this goes after this is in parallel, and like it really feels a lot like just patching when you're writing code sometimes.
Oh yeah, yeah. From the little experience I've had with like messing with pure data and just stuff like that, and honestly, just patching. Like I've talked about this a lot on the show, but I'm sure you can speak to it as well. But like I understand like all electronic musical instruments like exponentially, better than I did before modular. Like I could
Yeah,
make a
it's
synth work and stuff, but I didn't understand exactly. And now I'm like, oh, well, that's hardwired here, and that's hard, and
yep,
like, but that applies to a lot. Like, it's not because, like you said, it's how that's you plug this thing into this thing to make it do that thing, and then you plug the sum of those into this, and then you're routing things, and it's like, yeah, that's just how a lot of systems work, really,
yeah. I
like
mean,
outside
it's
of music.
for the since they had the recording studios,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like put the EQ before the compressor, or the other way around, or you know, the
Right,
reverb
right,
before the
right.
distortion pedal, which we all did at some point. Um,
Yep, yeah. That's yeah. Um, what else? There was a couple other things that I was super stoked on. Oh, dude, we have to talk about the stop function. The stop
oh yeah,
function is, and so that video that I made, it's on YouTube. The first thing that I did to it, because being a guitar player, and like I said, having the cutting room floor be like my primary guitar tool for years and years. That's the first thing that I did with this. Like I didn't plug any other like it was I'm putting my guitar into it, and I've got the board brain injector, which is just a guitar interface that brings it to modular levels, that has an amp simulator on it, and it's got positive and negative envelope outs for an envelope follower from your signal, and a gate out. So I was dialing in my gate signal to where like it would only hit if I played like like strummed hard, and then I had that gate going out into stop. And man, and then also gate using the gate to like clock some things, to clock wear and tear itself, and to be able to just like I could dynamically control a lot of these aspects on wear and tear, which I've been doing mostly with filters, like basically doing like super wah wah pedals, but just based off of the, what's being generated off the guitar through the module, um, and I feel like I had a lot of fun making that little jam
yeah.
that I did,
You were
and
just
then
rocking
bumping
out
it to
there,
stereo, like starting in the mono kind of realm. It was still technically stereo, but I wasn't running stereo into it. It was just
right?
doubled my input. So like at the second part when I start modulating, like it's just like I love how cool it sounds. And I'm really not trying to I'm speaking of how cool this module is, not how cool my guitar playing is. But like just that bump, that like, whoa, holy shit, that changed, and fuck, that stereo wideness just is massive. And yeah, it's fucking rad. So let's talk about this stop button, because it's fucking cool. And it's wily, but not in an uncontrollable way.
Yeah,
And I'm still wrapping my head around how to fully use it in the way that I want to make it work, like for specific, different use cases or whatever.
this was a real hard one. I'm still not 100% happy with it. I think I'm like 90% of the way
Oh,
there.
really? Okay.
Um, I think I went through like 3 or 4 different implementations of it. Talked to my friend who's like a physics. I talked to 2 different physics guys actually about this.
Uh huh.
So like the fun thing about this module is that it's like real time, right? Like
Uh huh.
there's practically no latency. You were playing guitar through it, no problem. Like
Right.
it's like
Yeah.
on the order of
And
samples.
like I said, yeah, like having like the dynamics of the playing fully controlling this thing and being able to jam with it. Yeah, that's.
So like pressing stop slows, like you're stopping a tape machine, it goes down to not playing, it goes down to
Mm-hmm.
silence. And then when you let go of it, you need to ramp back up to where you are in real time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And ordinarily you would just like speed back up at like the same rate that you sped down at. Like if you think about two cars at a stoplight, one goes, the other one just has to go up to it. Like you have to go
Right.
faster if you want to catch up.
Right.
And tape machines don't really do that. They would just like, go back up to normal speed, but you have to go a little too fast so you catch up where you are in real time. And it works. Like you can, the goal has been achieved where you can continue playing in real time. You can play guitar along with it and press stop. When you unpress it, you'll be back where you were. But there's something about it that I'm just like, it's not right there. But it works.
What? Yeah. So is it just within that speed up time you can tell the difference because you've listened to so many tape machines doing it, or like what is it the thing that I guess maybe you don't want to say it because you don't want to plant the seed in anybody out there who's using it.
Well, no, I'll be honest.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, it's your brand new baby. I don't want you to be like, tell me all the things that you got wrong about your new product.
So, I mean, I've talked about this with so many people, so I can explain it. Really, I hope I can explain it. But it's like if you're going 60 miles per hour, you press the brakes, you go down to 0. That's that. Mm-hmm. You want to go back up to 60 miles per hour? Yeah, go back up. Right? That's it. Right. And that's how tape machines work. Like if you're going at normal speed, you go to stop, you go back up.
But you have to go 80 to get back up to the person you're in sync with. Right.
Exactly. And like that little bit of going too fast, it just feels like a little bit off to me. And like,
I see.
It does what it has to do. There's no other way around it. We can't change the laws of physics to do this. But yeah, it doesn't, that's the one part where I'm like, this isn't how tape machines work. So still thinking of ways to do this. I'll tease. I'll be telling you things that I'm not totally sure if I'm going to do yet, but there's an expansion header on here.
Oh, I was like, is it too early to like start sending like my expansion ideas? Cause I'm sure you have plenty, but that's just how my brain works. I see the expansion port because I actually was like, oh man, it would be cool if you could do this, but that's always the case with modular feature creep. Like I don't think it's missing anything by any stretch of the imagination, but this does seem like a very likely or a very appropriate choice for like, what kind of module do you want to put an expansion port on? Because there are a lot of things that I feel like you could take advantage of.
Well,
because I think outside of all the modulation and everything, like this, like one of the ideas that I have for this, and I've already messed with it a bit, is just, maybe even running my whole mix, reamping a whole mix through it, and then using that as the final product or something like that, like just use it as a tape saturator.
I mean, I that's pretty much how I've been using it. Like I've tested every single thing, and I'm just like, this is what I want it to do. I want Boards of Canada. I just want that.
Totally. Yeah.
But what I want to do, and I will try to make happen, is just add tape loops. Like, and then you could just record, your sound on sound loop. The stop button, you don't have to worry about real time anymore because now you're just manipulating this loop, and that's one solution to this problem of just if it's a cassette emulator, let's go there.
Nice. Yeah. Well, one of it, this isn't one that, and I don't even know. A lot of times I get ideas and then I say them out loud, and then I'm like, oh yeah, that's actually a really bad idea, or it won't work, or. But I was thinking, like, especially with the noise and the age, or really pretty much like the noise, age, and saturation. It would be cool if you could have some expansion where you're just running a signal just through those.
Right. And sort of nothing else.
Yeah. So just like basically just like a little, 4 HP, like couple ins and outs, type thing. Cause like
that'd be fun.
When I see expansion, I'm like, well, fuck, you could make kind of like, a system, the size of this, whatever HP, 20 something HP, 4MS case not 20, probably whatever, 40 something, but
48 probably. Yeah.
48. Yeah. Yeah. Cause that's another thing, that, I'm talking with this friend last night who was, the friend that I got into modular, like your friend did. And, he's playing his first live set soon. but he decided to not use modular because, he has an OPZ and he's just more comfortable with that. And I was like, dude, because he was talking about just like making a set to play live with modular is a time consuming, and it becomes very like, oh shit, there's a lot going on here, a lot of stuff to control. And I think like modular in the direction that I see it going with a lot of the companies, like especially Qubit and with your module and the knobula stuff, um, you know, and honestly, one of the main reasons that I got into it was like for just effects processing, but not just on your delay reverb side, but on your kind of dynamic effect side, and just into chain type stuff, like making live sets sound that much sweeter. So I'm super stoked that this has a compressor on it as well. That sound, so you could just use this fucking thing as a compressor if you wanted a stereo
Yeah.
compressor. And yeah, so when I think about like the expansion opportunities into a small setup like 48 HP or something, I just think of that as like, oh, you could just put that, like you would have a rack mount synth in your studio, and that's just like how you'd use your big compressors in there. Like,
Right. Just
yeah,
plug it in,
yeah,
patch
because
it.
this stuff's, yeah, it sounds so good. And also like, especially like, bringing up Nobula, and I'm not just like, pumping them up because they're sponsors of the show, but like, I got their stuff and I was excited about it. But with, if I have Kikane and the Pianophonic, and then, Wear and Tear, and then my Keanu, and like a circuit tracks and a guitar, like I can do a fucking set with that.
Right. Yeah.
I could be a way more engaging and way cooler set than I could with my hundreds of HP of modules. Because I've done that a number of times, and I have yet to play a set where I'm like, that kicked ass. I've gotten to, oh, that was pretty good. That's as far as I've made it.
Yeah, I mean, live patching is terrifying. It's always in the dark too, and like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
hard to do like the DJ pre roll and make sure you're doing what you want to. And it's just like, yeah, you've been
Oh,
playing
I'm not
guitar
even talking
forever.
about live patching. I'm talking about like even
Oh,
building a set and then playing it live, like
got
I
it, got
think
it.
what happens is I just make it more complicated than it needs to be, and not complicated in a, like, I'm not saying that as a value judgment of how good the music is, but more complicated in the sense of like, I'm to the point now where I don't know what everything's doing. So if I want to
Right.
change something, I'm going to have to think about it and
Yeah,
look
yeah,
at it for
yeah.
a while. And I think modular's heading in this way where, yeah, it's kind of like not at all what the original intent of modular was, if there was ever one original intent, but it is what it is. And
Well, I think
yeah,
the
multifunction
things
is a
that
good thing, I think.
one of the things that I keep coming back to, especially now that this thing is out here, is like everybody wants something of their own, and like that is kind of like one of the principles of modular, just like you're building your own instrument, right? And like
Totally. Yes.
you get to pick what
100%.
you put in there and what you don't want to put in there. It's like, I want to put these effects because that's what I want. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you get to do that. So it's definitely in the spirit of modular.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I didn't want to like go too much on a
Yeah.
tangent, so I stopped myself. But I agree exactly 100% with what you're saying. Like, it's just like, why, like at this point, like I really love what 4MS has done with like their envelope VCA series like there's the really tiny one, and then they build to get like where you're wave shaping in real time these envelopes that can control this VCA if you want. We don't need just like we don't need ADS, like, sure, I'm not saying that don't ever make an ADSR modular again, but like if I was starting a company, I wouldn't make an ADSR module, like,
Yeah. It's been done. And there's
yeah,
people that have thought a long time about, unless there's some killer feature that you haven't thought of. But like, yeah, it's an
yeah.
important
So
utility, but they're out there.
right. And if like what I found, once you get a handful of years into modular, you make a big patch, and then when you tear it apart and you go in to build another one, oh, I am patching the same fucking things together at the beginning, because so even though like the idea of this total control, my brain is still doing this like hardwiring thing.
Yeah.
Um, so
Well, that's
like
why some people like rearrange their boats. Like,
I
it's just
do
like,
all
I
the
need to think
time.
about
Yeah.
this. Yeah. Get out of
And
those
that's something
patterns.
I always advise to people if they're ask me like when I was giving lessons over the pandemic or something. Yeah, like do it once a month or whatever. Just and then see, like, build a system that you think you can't, that you think is
Right.
not
Yeah.
really a system, and just see what you can do with it, you know?
Yeah. There's some Brian, oblique strategy about this, right? Like,
Right. Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
rearrange the parts in a way that makes no sense. Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, also, with like track. So I've been tracking this album, and there's a handful of songs that, well, one in particular I've been actually working on for like a year and a half, which is by and far the longest I've ever worked on one thing. I'm always like finish it in a week, and then it's like it's on Bandcamp, because I tend to work in really fast bursts. But what I'm finding, like, these new, like, oh, that's a real benefit of doing this over a long period of time, because while you're mixing, you might press play, or you have your fucking loop on your DAW set in a place where you didn't realize, and it's on, and it starts looping this part, and you're like, oh shit, if I just like slice that piece of audio,
Yeah.
I could, and that it's that kind of thing, so I don't even know why I brought that up, but I'm excited about it.
We know why. We know the reason why you brought it up.
Yeah.
Can't hide it. It's always top of mind.
Yeah, right?
Last of mind. It's just in there.
Yeah. So what are some of your ideas on the expansion beyond like a tape loop thing? I'm sure you have a handful of them, and I know this is you sharing them is not like your promise that they will exist or anything.
Tape loop is really like where the intention is. So just like,
Okay.
Start, stop, loop point, and then pitch, and then I got to see what I can do, but I want to have like, track at 1 volt per octave, and so you can just do your loop and then mess it up, layer it, and we can do that.
But the filters, if they're self oscillating through resonance, and you control the frequency of 1 volt per octave.
Yep.
Great. Yeah. So the first thing that I thought for expansion would be an expander that basically like gave you your Flutter and WoW as CV outputs, and maybe like a beginning or end of stop gate for the beginning and end of stop, kind of that kind of thing.
V0.2 had the, and then it was like no one was using it, so I was like,
yeah,
not making the cut.
Total. No, and that makes sense. Like, that's got to be tough when you're doing this design because of everything you were talking about earlier with, can you turn the knobs, and does it aesthetically look great? Like, and the feature creep that is, just built in to digital design. That must be really hard to be like, I got to sacrifice this baby to the altar. I like it, but it's got to go.
Yeah, and then sometimes you get to put your foot down, and you're just like, nope, it's important to me. I need both filters.
Yep.
And then, one person is like, I really like both filters. You're like, great. I knew I was right all along. Those other 3 people, they're misguided. They'll learn the way. I
am going on record right now officially saying that I both or none. It's not really, but like it is fucking cool having both of them. Watch my video I made, and you'll see why. Yeah. What else? There's okay. So the envelope on the noise. I'm still a little. Also, I don't want to take up too much more of your time because we're almost at an hour and a half. But I am in it. So, if you got to get going, we can talk about this all day.
I'm a 9-to-5er, and I put none of my coworkers, I hope, ever listen to this podcast. But I said that I was going to the vet right now, and now.
Oh shit! Do they know you have a modular company? And do they follow you on Instagram? Well, I'll edit this part out.
No, it's fine. But I do need to get going. Well,
I actually have to go teach a class pretty soon too. But well, maybe we'll save the envelope. If you want to touch on it, you can. But we could just save it for later. Or...
I can do it real fast. It's just it's envelope follower on top of the incoming audio. Makes noise get louder when your incoming audio is louder, and then the other way it ducks, which I think is more similar to how like cassettes actually work, where like
that's how I've been using it. Like, on the ducking side. But so with this, when you're setting the envelope, if it's at noon or 0 or whatever we want to call it, like that's just constant noise, right?
Yeah.
Like no envelopes do it, and then like to the right, the envelope follow from the incoming audio bumps up the volume, and then to the left it ducks.
Yep. So just
Okay,
making it
cool.
noisier or less noisy,
And
depending on
then
which way.
okay, so is it just a fixed envelope shape? This is the
Yeah.
question. And
It's
okay,
like,
and then it's the amplitude of the no. That I think that's totally good. I just wanted to know, like, am I changing the shape as I'm changing the depth of it?
yeah. I mean, I was like, one more knob, put it on there. But yeah, it's like,
I
this
don't think it's
is,
necessary. I think that's one of those things where it'd be like, it'd be cool. Like, I could see people on Reddit or being like, would be cool if you'd had this, but like, it's one of those things. I don't know how much use it
yeah.
would get. Like, and even if it did, like, come on, there's a lot of stuff you could do on this.
Yeah.
Like,
You can't, one knob compressor, same thing. I was just like, oh
yeah,
man,
yeah.
what about it? It's like, it's good enough. It's,
99% of people don't know what the fuck a compressor, like, they know what it is, but they don't understand like what they're doing with ratios and thresholds. Like,
yeah.
really, like, and I'm not trying to throw shade, but like, but a lot of compressors, if you just use the fucking preset that is for whatever, like, this is for electric guitar, it's going to sound better than what you're going to fiddle with, probably. Like,
Yeah. I
so
mean, I've used compressors for like 2 decades now, and I'm still just like, what
same here.
is the attack for? And just like,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
follow whatever anyone's saying.
Yeah, totally. So awesome, dude. Well, I think we've covered it. I haven't recorded a conversation in like, I unexpectedly like took a hiatus from making episodes for a while. So this is the first conversation I've recorded in like over a month, and you're reminding me just like how like socially and like psychologically, like, it's a battery charging for me to have these conversations, because I'm obviously interested in it, but I also love to talk to people who have a thing. And especially when there's not a lot of opportunity for them to talk about it, especially to people who actually care about it. I just like,
Well,
thank you for this module. Thank you for this time. You've socially charged me. I feel my battery is being filled. So thank you.
well, thank you. That's very, very nice to hear. And like, yeah, I've been sweating away at this thing for 6+ months or years, depending on how we look at it. Like, I'm happy to talk about it. None
Yeah,
of my
yeah, of
friends want to
course.
talk about it.
Of
My physics
course.
friends are just like, I don't care about anything but the physics problem. Like, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you came to the right place. And thank you so much for your time. And I want to give you the last bit of the show here to direct people anywhere they want, scream whatever you want from the modular mountaintops. It doesn't have to even be related to modular proclamation, whatever you want to
No, Tim, thanks so much for having me here. I'm going to go to NobCon. I don't know if
do.
you're
Fuck
going to go
yeah.
to Tom. Are we
Dude,
going to shake
I've
hands?
not been to any of those things except for Seattle ones. And it's mostly because I don't make enough money to like justify
Right.
doing that kind of thing. I really want to. And NobCon does seem like a more attainable one. So I hope so, but I don't know.
I'm going. This is my first rodeo for everything. First module, first
Hell yeah,
podcast.
dude.
I
Hell
was
yeah.
like, got to go to the Synth Expo. I got to talk to more people about it.
Yeah,
Hear what I
well,
did right.
if you want, I don't know if you, like, what kind of connections you have, but like, I kind of know like everybody, like, it's on some level, but especially, and that's not a humble brag. I've just talked to a lot of people
Yeah.
and done a lot of like, just, I introduce a lot of people to each other, because I think if there's one thing that I feel like I can proudly say that I can offer to the synth community is like, oh, you want to do something like that? You should talk to them.
Right.
That's my,
Connection
I think,
maker.
my gift to the world. And I humbly serve. That's this. I might cut this whole part out. But what I'm trying to say is, if you ever want to come up to the Northwest, I'm tight with Seattle and Portland scene.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. I'm in
so
Portland every once in a
I
while.
could get you in. Okay, so you have some friends up here already, and
Yeah, sometimes I go out there for work, and I can tack a couple more days out, and yeah,
dude,
love
if you're
talk.
ever out, yeah, if you're ever out on the West Coast or in the North, and specifically Northwest, and you give me a heads up, like, it could be cool to meet up. If you're ever passing through Tacoma or Seattle area, like, love
I
to
will
chill, show you the
keep that in mind.
studio.
And
Yeah,
that's like the nicest. Like, man, everyone in the community is so nice and like supportive, and like,
dude, it's insane. Yeah,
I complain here and there about people like, oh, 4 HP, when's the black panel coming out? But it's just like, you're gonna get that. You just let that wash over you. Everything
that,
else is like,
yeah, yeah. I feel like that's like the consumerism side of,
yeah,
and that's never gonna be taken out. So it's like, yeah, you take that for what it is.
yeah. This,
I also like to tell people, because the internet's often you hear what you should have done or what you shouldn't do more than like, hey,
yeah.
good job. And, you know, I get a lot of like, Tim interrupts too much. Tim talks about himself too much, or he doesn't go. And I'm like, you know, I was just a guy and I started a podcast. Be the change you want to see in the world. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
Like, I'm sorry. I'm not sorry, but like I am, you know, I have compassion for the fact that this, you know, this weekly show about the thing you love is not the way you would want it to be. But like, also, I can't do that, you know?
Do something. Yeah. Like,
Just,
yeah, it's easy to throw eggs, and it's harder to actually do anything. You're doing great. Don't listen to
thanks, man. That's what I was looking for.
There's a
You heard
Beyonce
it
song
here
about
first,
this
folks.
for sure, right?
What's that?
There's got to be some Beyonce song about like listen to the haters. You
Oh,
got it.
for sure. Yeah, lots of them. Yeah, I'm gonna make like I'm gonna break into that kind of realm of message and music and just be hyper specific about synthfluencers. I'm gonna make a concept album about the trials and tribulations of the synthfluencer, because I'm just kidding. That's not at all true. And I'm gonna keep talking if I don't give you the rest of your day. So, dude, Jason, thank you so much for this great module and your time today, man. Really
Thank you,
appreciate
Tim. Great conversation.
Thanks, dude. All right, that's our show. Thank you to Jason from Ampersand for gracing PodMod with his presence. Go check out the Wear and Tear, link in the show notes. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to support the show, you can head over to patreon.com/podularmodcast or go to Venmo and make a one-time donation to PodModTim or PayPal at podmodcast@gmail.com. Not Podular Modcast. Podmodcast@gmail.com. Also, thank you to the PodMod sponsors 4MS, Knobula, Expert Sleepers, and Signal Sounds. For more information on those companies, you guessed it, link in the show notes. Thank you to this week's featured artist, Zooza. If you would like to be a featured artist, please send me over a WAV file, a picture of your album art, and a brief bio to podmodsub@gmail.com. And last thing, Tacoma Porch Fest this weekend. I'm playing on Saturday at 3 p.m. If you're around, I'd love to play a show for you and then chat with you afterwards. This week's secret word is we need more episodes, Tim. Get your shit together. Until next week.